How can I sell my mobile home park fast? Do you need to sell your mobile home park quickly? Whether you're dealing with a tough partnership, health issues, or it's just time to move on from the business, in this video, I want to share how do you position your mobile home park so you can sell it at a great price and get out of it quickly by finding the right buyer. Most mobile home park owners think if they need to sell fast, they're going to have to sell it at a discount price. That's not actually the case. If you do these things in the video, you can position the mobile home park to sell at a premium price and still be able to meet your needs of your timeline. If you're sitting on a mobile home park now and it's time to sell, if you do these things, you can position it so that you don't waste time with brokers or with buyers that can't execute. So be sure to follow the advice in the video so you attract the right type of buyer so you can execute on a sale in the time that you need it to get done. Ultimately, by the end of this video, you're going to know what it's going to take to sell the park quickly and get the price that you're looking for if you position it in the right way up front. So check out this. All right, so you own a mobile home park and it's time to sell. First thing to do is determine your goals. If you need to sell it fast, then it's critical that you understand upfront how you're going to structure the package of the mobile home park. You want to put together all the information in a way that's going to allow the park to sell quickly. Now, if you don't need to sell fast and you give yourself a little more time, yes, that does give you an opportunity to attract a buyer that may pay a higher price. So if time is critical, then be aware that you may have to offer a concession on price to sell quickly. But if it's not, then I would give yourself a little more time. What does that mean? Well, nowadays in 2025, it's taking about 90 days at best to do a commercial real estate transaction. That is because banks are slow. Committees are delaying their meetings. The due diligence is taking longer for these banks, and the funding is slow as well. So if they're getting financing, then be aware of that because it's going to slow down your process. Plus, if you're going to be marketing the property and you're marketing it at a premium price with a broker or as a for sale by owner, it could take you 3 to 6 months to get the property sold if that package isn't put together properly or if there is an attractive price or terms. Now, when I look at a sale, I use this model called PTTM. It's price, terms, timeline, and motivation. So whenever I'm selling a property, I'm going to filter the sale through this lens. So first off, what price do I want to get? Well, how do you determine price? Well, first, you can get an appraisal. That's easy. And I would get a couple appraisals. It costs you a couple $1,000 more, but appraisers can vary all over the place. Next, I would highly suggest talking to a broker that is in the category of real estate that you're trying to sell. So they are a mobile home park broker. They're not a retail or a single family home broker or realtor. You want someone that specializes in that category. They're going to give you an opinion of the value. Once you have an expectation of what that value is, then look at the terms of the sale. Do you need all cash? If you need cash and you're going to pay the taxes and you're going to invest in another opportunity or you have a 1031 exchange, next is terms. So do you want another opportunity? Are you selling quickly so you can go buy another investment? If that's the case, then you're going to only want cash buyers or be sure that that buyer can get financing quickly. If you want to defer taxes, you're going to do an installment sale or you're going to carry a mortgage for the buyer. That's going to open up the buyer pool and allow you to accept or receive a higher price. Depends on the terms. The terms are many times going to help you dictate what price that you get. Next is going to be timeline. So if you have to sell fast and you want to sell in 30 days, you're probably going to have to discount the price or offer some advantageous terms. If you're in real estate, you know real estate is an illiquid asset class because people typically use leverage. They go get loans. So if you need a fast timeline, you want a cash buyer. That's critical. Or the buyer has access to hard money and they can close quickly. I would suggest that you make sure that they have the cash in the bank. There's nothing wrong with asking your buyer to see a bank statement with the proof of funds that they can close and that they actually control those funds. They're not someone else's funds they're showing you the bank statement for. Also, if they're going to close quickly, that buyer better have a track record. You want to ask them, have you ever done this before? Do you own other mobile home parks right now? If they do, then there's a higher probability they're going to close quickly on yours. And especially if they own one in that area that you already own your mobile home park in. And then lastly, motivation. Motivation is what is the reason that you're selling? If you have an amazing opportunity, and this happened to me, I was selling one of my mobile home parks back in 2016, and it was in New York. I put it under contract, sold it to a buyer who actually was a very wealthy person out of Maine. He was buying the asset, and then the last minute, he changed the price on me $200,000. And it was significant. It was over 12% of the sale price, and it killed me. I didn't have a backup buyer, but I had a great opportunity to buy an apartment complex in Nevada that was a off-market deal, and it had real upside potential. Because I was in a position I didn't have a backup buyer, and because I was motivated to sell and I wanted to get this other opportunity and I didn't have access to funds elsewhere, I needed those funds, I ended up taking the price cut and then moving it over into another asset. And I was able to do that and defer my taxes by buying another property. Now, this happens a lot. It's called a retrade or a renegotiation. So it's critical. We'll get into that later in the video about how to prevent a buyer from doing that. But knowing the motivation, your motivation of why do I want to sell so quickly is important. That way you can come up with multiple ways to solve that problem, where if it is another opportunity, maybe an investor can help you close quickly instead of having to sell your property quickly. Or maybe you can offer an installment sale where you can get the down payment from the buyer quickly and then use that for the next opportunity. Or maybe you can sell it due to a health challenge or issue and be able to offer those terms. Or maybe just getting cash and getting out of it quickly is the win. And the motivation is to get the asset off the books, pay off the debt, or just move on to the next asset. But knowing why you're selling it and what the goal is critical before you enter in the sales process. One critical piece you want to understand is the tax repercussions. I've worked with many sellers of mobile home parks and even myself where I sold a property and I didn't realize how much tax I was actually going to pay. So sit down with your CPA or a tax advisor. Tell them what you're doing. I'm selling my mobile home park. This is the value I think I can get for it. What they're going to do is look at your balance sheet and look at your tax returns and say, this is all the depreciation that you took off that asset. This is your basis, and this is your capital gain. You're going to have to pay long-term capital gains, which right now in the US at the highest bracket is 20%, which is not bad. But you'll also have to pay depreciation recapture, which that can be anywhere between 25 and 37%, depending on how you took that depreciation. And that's all of it over the life of the asset. So sometimes if people have refinanced their property and they've pulled out a lot of the equity, and at the sale, they're only going to get a certain amount of proceeds, there's not a lot of funds, or if they're just making a profit, they think they only need to pay tax on the profit. That's not necessarily the case. If there's more debt on the property, but you still depreciated it down to a very low basis, you have a high tax liability. A lot of the profits that you generated might have to go paying off the tax bill instead of you putting it in your pocket, and you can't achieve your goals. And when you talk to your tax advisor, and if you are looking for a consistent stream of income and you want to defer the tax, maybe you do create an installment sale. I've sold properties where I had a challenging time selling it on the market because of interest rates so high that I carried the note. I was the bank. And now that buyer was making payments to me at 6, 7, 8% interest. And I knew that I would get my payment because they gave me a large down payment and they personally guaranteed the loan. And if they defaulted, I would get the property back, foreclose on it, and be able to keep that down payment. Plus, I got my payments every single month along the way. And luckily, they didn't default. I got my payments. And then when their loan came due with me, they paid me off the balance. But at that time, I was able to strategize for my tax situation and able to make the right decision for me without having to sell the property cash right away. So what paperwork do you need to put in place? Well, first off, you want to get a trailing 12 profit and loss statement. That means you can see each month side by side for 12 months, what's the income, what's the expenses, and what's the profits, the NOI. That's going to help the buyer understand how the property performs. Next, if you have a survey, that's important. And if you don't have a survey, it'd be nice if you got a survey. That's going to help the buyer out and speed up the process. You can get an ALTA survey. It's the American Land Trust Act. It's the highest level of survey that you can get. That's going to outline the easements, the encroachments, the entitlements. It's going to see all of the structures on the property, where the property boundaries are, all the stuff that you're going to need, where anyone that buys a property, that is the gold standard. And then they can get their title insurance easily because they have the survey, the ALTA survey, they can line up with it. If you have an environmental inspection, it's called a phase 1 environmental. That is ideal. If you want to close quickly, having that in a package for the buyer is very helpful. Have a description of the utilities, the utility bills. Is it city utilities? Is it private utilities? When is the last time you maintained the utilities? And then give those to the buyer immediately because that's going to eliminate a lot of their due diligence. The age and condition of the mobile homes and a list of the mobile homes. And if you have the mobile home titles if you own park-owned mobile homes, please have them. Give them to the buyer. That's going to save a lot of time if the titles are in your possession. And the list and age and serial number is very helpful. And then a simple park site layout map. This is the lot number. This is where the site is located. These are the addresses. And that ties into the most important piece is the rent roll. The rent roll showing all the occupied tenants, all the vacant lots, and then what the tenant pays if they're delinquent or if they're current on their rent, and if you bill back any of the utilities. This is everything a mobile home park owner needs so they can make a quick decision to be able to buy your park. So how do you choose the right exit strategy or the vehicle in order for you to sell? There's a couple options. One, you can choose a broker. Broker's going to take some time. That's the only challenge. It's going to take time to put the marketing package together. They're going to analyze it and give you a price, and then they're going to put it on the market, and then they're going to wait for a qualified offer. Now, when you do hire a broker, ask them, are you going to be exposing it on all the websites like CoStar, LoopNet, Crexy, or are you going to keep it as a pocket listing and try to keep all the commission yourself and work with your own network? That's not always a bad thing. There are some great mobile home park brokers that will give you a premium price, but I err to the side of getting it on the market and working to find a buyer through their network. That is the ideal situation because you expose yourself to all buyers. Next is you can put it on an auction platform. 10x.com, they're an auction platform where that still takes time. It's not a quick process, but it could be 60 to 90 days. And that will ensure that if the minimum bid is met, that you will get the property sold, but it's not my first choice. Next is calling around the other mobile home parks in the area and asking them, would you like to buy another park? Those are going to be some good buyers, but if they're local or they're owners that really aren't growing, they're probably not going to get the highest price, and they still might not be savvy in order to get financing or have the cash available to close quickly. Or you could sell it yourself. You could put it on websites like mobilehomeparkstore.com, or you could sell direct to a buyer like me. So my company's called Patriot Holdings. I've been buying mobile home parks for 20 years. You want to work with a reputable buyer, so you have a network of buyers that you want to reach out to, and one would be myself, where we would give you a price based on the current market value, and if you have all these reports, we're able to make a decision quickly, underwrite it, and come up with a bona fide offer. If the timeline's important, make that clear to the buyer. If you would like to sell quickly within 30 to 45 days, you have to let the buyer know because that is going to affect the way that they're going to close on the property. That's where you're going to want to qualify the buyer. So some of the questions you want to ask your buyer is, do you own any mobile home parks now? Where do you own those mobile home parks? How long have you been in the business? Do you have the funds available? Can I see proof of funds? Are you getting financing? Can I get a letter of recommendation or credit or some type of mortgage broker or bank letter validating they can get a loan? And how quickly can you close? Now, if the buyer is going to be paying all cash or they are going to be using hard money, meaning private money that can close quickly, they're going to want a discount on the price. And if you're going to price it competitively, you can most likely sell the park very quickly, 30 to 45 days. If there's no need to receive all cash at the closing, then creating an installment sale or doing owner financing is the way to go. Even if you carry the note for as short as 1 year or do the loan for 1 year, the buyer can easily close on the transaction if they're experienced and the due diligence package is in place. The owner financing terms will help a buyer eliminate needing to use the bank, come up with the down payment, and close on the property quickly, meeting your goal of selling quickly. Things to consider when selling the park and pricing it. Is it stabilized with the occupancy? If it's fully stabilized and occupied, of course, you're going to be able to command a higher price. What are the utilities? If there's city utilities, you're going to get a better price because a buyer incurs less risk. If there's city water and sewer and power, and especially if they're directly billed to the tenant, that is ideal because you're going to be able to command a higher price, less risk for the buyer. Is it a value add opportunity where the buyer's going to have to fill lots, they're going to have to work on the utilities with the infrastructure, they're going to have to repave roads, and they're going to have to work with a lot of troubled tenants with a lot of delinquency. If you're not getting the rent collections or if there is that deferred maintenance, it's wise to price the property competitively so that a buyer is going to be attractive and they know up front that they're going to have to do these things in order to improve the property rather than the property being inflated in price. No one would be interested because of all that deferred maintenance or management issues. Is the area geographically solid? Meaning, is it stable? Is it a good community that's close to jobs and higher cost of housing? If it's a declining market and the area's at no jobs, poor schools, a really rough tenant base, it's out in the middle of nowhere, then obviously you're going to have to price the property to that standard or to the point where it's going to have to be at a discount so that a buyer would be attracted to the higher cash flow for taking on that risk. So the ideal situation is you work with an experienced operator. So here at Patriot Holdings, we buy parks all the time. I've done this, like I said, for 20 years. So upfront, working with the right person who's professional, that has access to capital, who has skin in the game, who actually invests their own money, and they're in the business day in and day out. They're not sitting behind a desk, hiring other people to do everything like a management company. And they don't know anything about the business. Those are red flags. So working with an operator that's experienced, direct, and upfront is critical. One thing to keep in mind is getting the buyer committed. When you're working with a good buyer, you're going to want them to put up earnest money, a significant deposit, at least 1% of the purchase price. The more you can get, the more leverage that you have that they're going to be putting up those funds in order to close the property. And then you want to give it a period of time, 30 to 60 days, where that money goes hard. That means that it's non-refundable, that you get that money regardless if the transaction closes or not, and they can't cancel. Now, if you want the earnest money to go hard right away, you're going to have all that due diligence up front, and it must be a very competitive price because it's a big risk for a buyer to not be able to do any due diligence and still put money at stake, where if they end up finding something that's wrong with the property and cancel, they lose that deposit. But that is your leverage. The more you can get as a deposit and when you can get it to go hard is going to make sure that the buyer's committed. Next, you want to be sure that they're ordering their third-party reports. Stay involved in the transaction and ideally get at least bi-weekly updates. If you're going to be closing in 30 or 45 days, you want to know, was the financing ordered? Was the appraisal ordered? If they're getting one. If they don't need one, if they're closing cash, then did you get your title work done? Do you have an attorney working on it and making sure that the contract obviously was executed quickly? Are they getting a survey? And if they're not getting a survey, is that going to be an issue? Do they need an environmental inspection? Did they order the environmental inspection? And then you want a copy of all these reports so that you have them. And if they do cancel, that makes your property that much more valuable. And then also, a serious operator is going to take operations seriously. They're going to have a team ready to take over where they're going to want to meet the manager. They're going to want to start to transfer the utility bills the day after closing, and they're going to have a process to take on that asset. If they don't have a process or a team, that's trouble because they probably don't know what they're doing. So if you own a mobile home park and you want to sell it fast, I gave you all the key items that you're going to need to focus on so that you can sell that property and meet your goals of selling. And if you're interested in getting an offer from me, click the link below. It's in the comments. Happy to send you out all our information and hop on a call with you, and no pressure. So regardless, this will give you clarity where you can hire a broker, find an off-market buyer, or sell it directly to Patriot. You'll know exactly what you need to do, and you'll have an idea of what the value of the property is. So reach out to us, schedule a call, and look forward to meeting you and talking to you. And I respect you as a mobile home park owner because it's not an easy job.